Assalamu alaikum, my dear student. I expect you to be in sound health by the grace of Almighty in this COVID-19 situation, and you are enjoying our online class program and staying at your home. So, let us get started. Welcome to Amader Pathshala. Our today's topic is right form of verbs. Although it is especially for class 11 and 12, but the students of class 9 and 10 and also the school level students will also be benefited from this class, my students. So, verb is a vital component in a sentence. Without a verb, we cannot make a sentence. So, there is a number of rules to make correction in this section. So, let us see what is right form of verb first. In the board, the verbs are the most changeable element of the sentence. The right form of verb encompasses most of the grammatical rules of English language. The verb appear differently in a sentence on the basis of their subject, verb, agreement, tenses, moods, voice, different structures, modals, etc. So, especially in this section, we have to know some rules regarding that item: subject, verb, agreement, tense, moods, voice and different structures and modals, my students. So, if we like to know about the rules number 1, s or es should be added to the verb if the subject is third person singular number and the tense is present indefinite. So, to use s or es with the basic form of verb, we have to be keen on two items especially. The subject should be third person singular number and the tense should be present indefinite. So, if the two condition is fulfilled in a sentence, then we can use s or es with the verb. For example, his father come home every week. So, every week denotes present indefinite tense. His father third person singular number. So, the right form of verb come will be comes. S or es has been added here. In next sentence, the boy generally go to college at 8 a.m. So, generally is an indication of present indefinite tense and the subject here we found the boy. So, this is third person singular number. So, the correct form of the verb will be goes, my students. So, goes will be its correct form. Our next example, she writes a letter whenever she gets time. So, she third person singular number subject and the tense here is present indefinite tense. So, s or es should be added here to make it correct. So, she writes a letter whenever she gets time, my students. So, our last example, the baby cry for its mother every now and then. So, the baby third person singular number you see and the tense is present indefinite tense. That is why cry should be written cries after adding s or es. So, you have to keep in mind that if we find present indefinite tense and the subject is third person singular number, we have to add s or es with the main verb, my students. So, let us see another rules. Rule number 2, after modal auxiliary. So, what is modal auxiliary, my student? We have usually two types of auxiliary verb, primary auxiliary and modal auxiliary. Primary auxiliary means am, is, are, was, were, do, have, because they can help other verb to make a tense or sentence, or they can be used as a main verb in a sentence. On the contrary, modal auxiliary verb cannot make an individual sentence itself. It always helps other verb to make a sentence. And in active sentence, after modal auxiliary verb, we have to use just the basic form of the verb without ing or without another form of verb. Just the basic form of the verb should be used in active sentence if we find any modal auxiliary verb, my student, and if the sentence is active. For example, the man can, let us see some modal auxiliary verb list: can, could, may, might, shall, should, will, would, must, need, dare, be going to. Be going to means am going to, is going to, are going to, was going to, were going to. In a word, be going to can be said used to, ought to, etc. We have to use present form of verb without s or es or ing if the sentence is active. So, in active sentence, after modal auxiliary verb, we must use basic form of verb. For example, the man can do the work. So, do is the present form or basic form. So, in this case, the main verb will not be changed. So, do is a correct form of verb, because can is a modal. After modal, you know, basic form of the verb should be used, do. Next, she must come to our office in time. So, come is a basic form of verb, and after must modal auxiliary, we have to keep it unchanged. So, come is the correct form of verb. Next, the student should learn his lessons regularly. As we found should modal auxiliary just before the verb, so the verb should be kept at present form or basic form, my student. Next, the girl must not go to college on foot. So, must is a modal auxiliary verb. So, after modal auxiliary, we must keep the main verb at the basic form or main form, go. So, the girl must not go to college on foot. Let us see next rules. But we have another rules on modal auxiliary verb. What is it? Let us see. After modal auxiliary, what are the modal auxiliary verbs? Can, could, may, might, shall, should, will, would, must, need, dare, be going to, used to, ought to, etc. After these modal auxiliary verb, we have to use be plus past participle form of verb if the sentence is passive. So, in the rules number 2, we used basic form of verb after modal auxiliary verb, but now we have to use extra be then past participle form of verb after modal auxiliary verb. Why? If the sentence is passive. So, in active sentence after modal auxiliary verb, we have to use the basic form of the verb, but in passive sentence after modal auxiliary verb, we have to use be plus V3, because passive sentence must need a be verb. And how can we identify, is it an active sentence or is it passive sentence. If we find the subject does not perform the verb directly, it will be known as passive sentence. And in active sentence, the subject directly perform the verb. So, let us see, the work can do soon. So, do is a main verb here, subject we found here, the work, but the work, this noun phrase cannot perform the verb directly, because this is not an agent. So, the subject cannot perform the verb directly. So, it will be known as passive sentence. So, the work can be done soon. Okay, be done soon. So, according to structure, be, we used be, past participle form of verb, done, past participle form of the verb. Next sentence, all the mangoes could eat. Eat is a verb here, you know, and mangoes, this is subject. So, mangoes cannot eat themselves. So, eat verb cannot be performed by the subject mango. So, when the subject cannot perform the verb, this sentence will be known as passive sentence. So, in passive sentence, according to rules, after modal auxiliary could, we have to use be and then V3 of eat. What is the V3 of eat? Eaten. Could be eaten. Our next sentence, your duty must be performed very soon. So, must is a modal auxiliary verb and perform is a verb. So, your duty cannot be performed itself. So, the subject cannot perform the verb. Who is the performer? You are the performer in this sentence. So, there is no you here. So, the performer is not here. That is why this is a passive sentence, because subject cannot perform the verb. So, as it is passive, according to rules, after must we have to use be and V3, performed. So, be performed will be correct answer, my student. So, in passive sentence, if we find modal auxiliary before the main verb, we have to use extra be and past participle form of the verb to make it passive correctly. This is the rules number 3, right form of verbs. So, let us see another rules. Rule number 4, if the subject does not perform the verb directly, I told you sometimes ago, if the subject does not perform the verb directly, the sentence will be passive. Partly similar rule, but not totally similar, because here usually we do not find modal auxiliary verb, but this is basic rules of passive sentence in right form of verbs. For example, English speak the English. Look at the board again. English here has taken article the, but the first word English here has not taken any article. So, there is a reason behind it. If the word English is used without any article, English will be known as a language. So, this English is a language, but if the word English takes article the, this means a group of people, English speaking people, I mean the English as a nation. So, if the word English takes the, it will be English nation, and if the English is bare or does not take any article the, it will be known as English. This is English language and this is English nation. So, English is speak the nation. This is not correct, because English cannot speak, it is a language, it cannot speak. So, this English language can be spoken by the English, because the English is the nation here. So, this is present tense, you know. So, in present tense, we know the right form of verbs, the be verb should be taken first. From am, is or are, we have to select is as English third person singular number, my student. So, English is spoken by the English. This is the correct form of the verb, because this English is a language. So, English is spoken by the English. This is the correct form of the verb. Next sentence, he has expelled from the examination hall. So, here the subject is not performing the activities of the verb expel. So, the activities of the verb has been done on the subject. So, the subject is not acting on the verb here directly. So, this is a passive sentence. So, in passive sentence, after have or has, usually we take been and V3, because this is present perfect tense indicating. So, he has been expelled from the examination hall, my student. Our next example, the boys were sent to school yesterday. Yesterday is a past indicating word. So, between was or were, as the subject is plural boys, we have taken here were. If the subject would be singular, we could take here was. So, to make passive in right form of verbs, the boys were sent to school yesterday, because yesterday is a past indicating word. Our next example, the bird killed on the ship last week. So, kill is a verb here, the bird subject here, but the bird does not kill itself, because the bird is killed by somebody else or something else. So, this is a passive form. So, the bird is killed on the ship, last week, it means this is past tense. So, the bird third person singular number was will be used here as be verb. So, bird was killed on the ship last week, my student. So, in sentence, if we find any past indicating word, for example, last week, for example, yesterday, the sentence should be past sentence. Next example, cricket play all over the world. Cricket play all over the world. In this sentence, there is no indication of past tense. So, this is a present tense. So, cricket cannot play itself. So, it is played all over the world by someone else or somebody else or by some players. So, cricket is third person singular number. That is why to make it passive, we have to take be verb is and V3 played, my student. So, let us say cricket is played all over the world. So, in this way we will be able now to make passive sentence correct in this section, right form verbs. So, let us say our next rules. In case of universal truth and habitual fact, present indefinite tense will be used. So, you know what is universal truth? The sentence of universal truth cannot be changed anyway. And the habitual fact, if we find any activity that indicates any habit of the subject, this should be written in present indefinite tense. So, we cannot make any change in this section except s or es, or keeping the main form of verb in its basic form. For example, the earth moved around the sun. So, according to rules, this will be present indefinite tense, because this is universal truth. The earth moves around the sun. As it is present indefinite tense indicating universal truth, so the earth third person singular number, we have to add here s. So, the earth moves around the sun, my student. Next sentence, the sun rise in the east. So, this is also a universal truth, my student. The sun third person singular number, we have to use here s or yes with the main verb. So, the sun rises in the east, my student. Our next sentence, the sun set in the west. This is also a universal truth. The sun third person singular number, so set will be sets. The sun sets in the west, my student. And next sentence, we know that ice float on water. This is also ice float on water. This is also universal truth. So, ice third person singular number, we have to use s or es with the verb. So, that is, we know that ice floats on water. But the last sentence denotes the habitual fact. For example, I get up early in the morning every day. So, this is a habitual fact of mine, that this is usually I do every day. So, habitual fact can also be present indefinite tense. As I subject here is not third person singular number, so s or es will not be used with the verb. So, first person subject I can take only the basic form of the verb get. So, I get up early in the morning every day. So, my students, if we find any universal truth or habitual fact in right form of verb section, we have to solve the problem with the proper using of present indefinite tense. So, let us see another rules. Rule number 6. If we find these words, a group of words, for example, generally, usually, ordinarily, normally, always, sometimes, often, daily, every day, regularly, without indication of any specific time, just this verb without indication any specific time, present indefinite tense will be used. In this case, we have to use present indefinite tense to solve the problem of right form of verbs. Here, first example, Sabiha learned her lessons regularly. So, regularly indicates present indefinite tense, and this is Sabiha third person singular number. So, s or es will be used with the verb here. Just Sabiha learns her lessons regularly. Next sentence, he always disturbs the students. So, always indicates present indefinite tense, and he third person singular number. So, s or es should be added with the main verb. So, from disturb to disturbs we used here. Our next example, a good student learn his lessons regularly, my student. So, a good student third person singular number, and we found here the word regularly. This is present indefinite indicating. So, s or es should be added with the verb. So, a good student learns his lessons regularly. So, my student, you have to keep in your mind that generally, usually, ordinarily, normally, always, sometimes, often, daily, every day, regularly. If we find these words in a sentence, usually you have to solve the right form of verbs with the proper using of present indefinite tense. Let us see as example. Rule number 7, present form of verb is used after let. So, basic form of verb means present form of verb. Let, had better, had rather, would better, would rather, do not, does not, did not, need not, etc. After these words or after this word, we have to use V1. For example, I let the other boys use my kids. So, as we found here the word let, as we found the word here let, we have to use here the basic form of the verb. So, use should be unchanged here. Next example, I had better go home by this time. If we have found here had better, we have to use basic form of verb go. So, the verb go should be unchanged. Next example, I need not do the work. As we found here need not, after need not you know basic form of verb should be used do. Next, he did not go to college yesterday. Yesterday is a past tense and did is a past tense indicating. So, after using do, did or does, we have to use basic form of verb. So, go will be unchanged and he does not like student politics. So, after does or does not, we have to use just basic form of verb like. So, in this way, my student, we have to solve the problem of right form of verbs. In this section, you have to keep the rules of changing right form of verbs, or the conjugation of verbs should also be kept in mind, and the rules must be kept in mind properly to do well in this section. My student, thank you very much for joining me. This is for today. Allah Hafiz.